Welcome to episode 53. Today's special guest is lawyer and Olympian Ben Buckingham. How's it going, mate?
Good, mate. As you were saying, it's good to catch up for a chat and see if I'm still up for it at 9 p.m. on a Sunday. See how much we meander down rabbit holes.
No, it's good, mate. Spoke about how your Olympics went. Obviously, you're kind of slowly getting into training again. But let's say if you were competing in another event in the Olympics, what would that be and why, other than the steeple?
Uh, Honestly, it's not something that's really come to mind. So I'm not like one of those people who can just tell you straight away. I'm sure Stewy would say basketball, or some of the guys that have something straight to mind. Another running event would probably be 1500. I always think that's a pretty special distance. I am always jealous of the people who can just uh, eat whatever they want in the season or pre-race. So something like the 100 meters or something a bit more sort of explosive and not as distance focused might be exciting. I played football when I was a kid, so I'd love to represent Australia in football. I like soccer, but
All right,
obviously that's under 23s at the Olympics, which isn't quite the same thing. So if you're after skateboarding from my answer, then I'm afraid I'll have to disappoint you. I haven't done any of that since I was about 13, 14. But that, or maybe surfing. I enjoy surfing. I like surfing in my spare time. So
yeah,
that
that's
probably
really
in reality that's probably the one, surfing, because that's what my dad used to do.
awesome. I surfed along Port Fairy, beautiful area. So I'm not sure if you've surfed along there, but yeah, I love surfing from time to time.
No,
Um,
definitely not Port Fairy, but down like that, down
yeah,
Fairhaven,
yeah,
Anglesey way on occasion
yeah.
when I'm in off season.
And speaking of like the football, do you follow the Premier League? Because I'm a big Leicester fan. What about yourself?
No, I follow it. I follow it very closely. I wouldn't say I've got a team as such.
Yeah,
I used to follow Man U a bit because my English granddad went for him,
Ronaldo's back.
but Ronaldo is back. It's very exciting in every way, and we're on for a really good year. I was watching. Was doing fantasy Premier League this year, and was
Oh,
really
that's amazing.
uh, getting into it. But I just enjoy that quality of football, especially Champions League. And One of the perks of my recent European trip was I was in all these countries when you had live European football. So I was in
Wow.
Switzerland when Switzerland beat France, and so we were in like remote Switzerland on a training camp. But it meant when Switzerland beat them, like the whole town went off, and they were driving around tooting and like all sorts of lights, a light show. And then we were in Italy when Italy made the final, and then I was in England for the actual final.
Oh, really?
So we were really lucky in that regard to sort of be in all those countries when those countries were having a really good Euros.
Yeah, for sure. And let's touch on your Olympics now, Bucks. Obviously your first one qualifying like for Tokyo, but especially like that race, you ran a 4 second PB and fought really hard. But more so on that experience, what was that whole experience like with the the masks, the testing every day and all that, and were the beds that bad?
I mean, starting with the beds, honestly, I slept fine. They were fine. They were obviously made of. They seemed like the frame was made of cardboard, but um, they were fine. They were just a bit of a laugh. Like I remember Stewy jumped on my bed to test it. It was fine. Distance runners are pretty slim, mate. So we weren't much of a worry. And No one in my house got up to too much mischief. So it was, they were sturdy. They did the job. Um, in regards to masks and testing and everything, that was just something I'd got used to for the whole European trip. Like I can't remember how many tests I got the whole time. Uh, Masks everywhere, masks in transport. So the vibe from most athletes was we were just really happy we got to be there and we got to compete and that the games actually happened. And if you got to get a test every day and wear masks and quarantine after, that's just the price you pay. So no complaints from me. And it was also my first Olympics, so I've got nothing to compare it to. So for me, that was just normal, and I was just really happy to be there.
Yeah, for sure. And for those who don't know what steeplechase is, can you give them like a little intro about how it's run, and yeah, talk us through that quickly.
Well, it's just a 3K race around the track, so 7.5 laps, and you've got 5 jumps per lap. 4 of them are about waist height, 91 centimeters, and 1 jump a lap has water on the other side. So you sort of come into a water pit and get saturated and go again. So it's literally like a horse race when you're going over barriers. One of them which has a bit of water. My girlfriend's chuckling at this as I say that, but she's always she always has a bit of fun watching, and it adds a bit of jeopardy and a bit of fun to the event because you've always got something to think about when you're in a pack. It's quite tense and stressful going over jumps. The race is more broken, so I really enjoy it. I really enjoy that sense of jeopardy and the it's a different skill staying calm in a pack when you're constantly approaching jumps and guys in front of you are moving around. So, but 3K race, 5 jumps a lap, 35 jumps. You're running about 30 seconds slower than a 3K flat.
That's very interesting, especially because like what you have to do executing those jumps and then pretty much sprinting to the next one. So, yeah, that's interesting in
Pretty
itself.
much 35 times, especially when you're cooked at the end of a race.
Especially 30-degree weather, Tokyo humidity, etc. You done it pretty well.
Well, annoyingly, they had a track. They had a temperature gauge on the track, so when you got out there,
Yeah.
you sort of knew exactly how hot it was. And honestly, I would rather not know, so I could just get on with it.
How
So
hot was it?
it was 34, 35 from
Oh,
memory.
wow.
I wore an ice vest in the warm up, which was I hadn't done before, and that seemed to really help. But honestly, I don't think the heat affected me that much. I don't think the race wasn't long enough. It was 8 minutes. It was
Yeah.
an 8 minute race. It was the people who raced 15-minute races or the 10K who really got affected. The steeplechase was pretty good.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear, mate. And take me back to like growing up in Myrtleford, obviously in a farm. What was that like? And talk me through the terrain running and all that. I don't know if you ran a few times there.
No, I mean, it's a great place to train. It's so like Myrtleford's the closest town, but it's where I grew up. It's 45 minutes from Myrtleford. It's on a 600-acre beef cattle farm. It's very remote. You've got sort of like a 25K loop and a lot of other
Oh wow.
trails. They're all pretty hilly. They're all sort of undulating dirt roads. It's a great place to run, to do reps, to do long runs, and I think it had a really really good effect on me on sort of my just drop my headphone here. Just on my sort of ability to stay in the sport for a long time, and I think just running on hills as a junior is just really valuable. So I always loved getting up there for a training camp, and to sort of answer the first half of your question, when you grow up somewhere, that's just home. You don't know anything different. It's just normal. But on reflection, it was like a very sort of remote, pretty amazing place to grow up with the trails and the farm. So I'm very lucky.
No, that's beautiful, mate. And just quickly, I'm not too sure whereabouts that is, but like, is it like close to a particular area or region, like in Victoria?
That with the farm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So you've been to Falls Creek?
Oh, may close to that area. Yeah, I kind of know where it is.
Well, when you come out of Melbourne, if you turn off the freeway around sort of Benella Wangaratta and head into the King
Yeah.
Valley, that's where the farm is. So it's sort of 40 minutes from Myrtleford, but it's more on the King Valley side than the Myrtleford side. Um, so it's a really cool spot. About 4 hours from Melbourne.
And obviously, now onto your uni studies because you're a lawyer. But so you studied 2 degrees, I believe, at Melbourne Uni. So can you diverge into like the courses you studied there and what like the degrees were like?
No, of course. I did a Bachelor of Arts and I majored in History and International Relations for my first degree, which was, mainly probably focused on, Chinese and Middle Eastern politics was probably what I found the most interesting on that sort of history. And also a bit of Russian, a bit of French. Just my mum was a history teacher, so I always loved that side of things, and also because it's fascinating to sort of look at. I mean, a good current example is Afghanistan. I mean, you can't
for sure.
understand that place without understanding the history and understanding the Soviets' history in the 80s and the British history in the 1900s and earlier, all the way back to like 200 years. So I've always found that fascinating. And then I finished my history degree and I did a postgrad degree in law at Melbourne as well. And I then got a job in 2017 at a firm in Hawthorn. And I've changed about two or three times since. Did a grad year. I then went to the court as a judge's associate. And then I was a lawyer at Minters for a couple of years, which is sort of a big law firm in the city. And I've then moved to ANZ for the last year, which has been really good for my running, and it's been a really nice change. So I've sort of been quite fortunate to have a career that's sort of ticked along whilst I'm running, and have a job that's that I can really balance with running, whilst also sort of progressing the career.
Yeah, that's really good to hear. And as a lawyer, do you have to wear a lot of suits or different types of suits and all
Well, mate, I've been working from home for about
that?
we're into the second year, so it's funny, we moved house miles away, and I kept about 2 suits, but I don't know why I did. I haven't put them on since my job interview for ANZ. I usually work in a t-shirt these days, maybe a jumper, but I used to go wear a suit every day. Have a bunch of shirts. Just I mean, blokes, your dress code doesn't change that much day to day, but pretty much you mix it up with the colour of your belt, colour of your boots, and maybe your sock selection. You can always do a few fancy socks to muck around with. But apart from that, it's pretty straight down the line, mate.
Oh, that's good to hear. And what about the suits, the legal series? Were you a fan of that as well, Bucks?
I remember watching that in my first week of law school,
Yeah.
or maybe my first week of law school exams, and I might have watched the first 3 or 4 seasons and really enjoyed it. Because it's rare for there to be a series that actually looks into corporate law. Most legal series focus on criminal, or mainly criminal law, to be honest, or courtroom drama. So I really enjoyed it. I don't know how representative it is of real life, although some of the corporate chaos is certainly a bit closer to home than you'd expect. But it's a lot of fun. I did enjoy it when I was at uni.
That's amazing to hear as well. I know there's a few fanatics out there listening to a potty who love a bit of that. And I know you love a bit of sports as well. Obviously, you touched on football, Man United and all that. But are there any other sports or teams you follow in Australia or around?
So in AFL, I'm a big Melbourne fan. Dad was a fan. I've been a fan the whole time. So I'm obviously as excited as anyone in Melbourne right now with them making the prelim, and Dad's also super excited. So if I'm allowed to, I'll probably try and get home and watch it with him. But we'll see how lockdown goes next couple of weeks. But Premier League, AFL. I follow a few other sports, but I wouldn't say I follow them as close. I watch a bit of tennis when it's on, a bit of basketball, but probably Premier League and AFL are the two that I follow quite closely.
Oh, it's good to hear you're a Melbourne supporter. Hopefully they can do what the Doggies did a few years ago.
That's the hope. That's the hope, eh? That's definitely the hope.
Yeah, it's amazing. Especially, mate, I'm a North Melbourne supporter, and we're shocking right now. So hopefully we can take some inspiration off you guys and bounce back.
It's funny. My boss is actually a big North Melbourne supporter at ANZ. He was quite hoping that he was happy with Ben Brown to be having a bit of fun, but otherwise not a bit of a grim year. But you got to remember, I had about 11 grim years with Melbourne, from like
exactly
15
right.
to 27. So it does come and go. It's the hope when you're a kid that kills you. Because Melbourne were quite good when I was a kid, like 02 to 06, they were decent, and then it's all been downhill since then.
Well, I was a big fan when Drewy Petrie kicked the banana when I was younger. I think I was 9 or something. 2014, 15, we're killing it, but now we're trash.
Well, only I mean I can't really can't say much to that, mate. But I can say it does turn, and it's all the sweeter when it does turn when they get good again.
Yeah, for sure. But we spoke earlier about like obviously Switzerland, that trip, and other areas you've been across with your running journey. But are there some places in the world you recommend like visiting? Um, any extraordinary locations specifically?
Interesting question. Uh, First place I'd just say for running, Saint Moritz is stunning, and it's got everything. It's got a
Looks
track, it's
beautiful.
got a good spot for a threshold, it's got a great long run, it's got great jogging spots. You're also living with a mini city, so there's a lot there, and there's a lot of things to do to pass the time. And apart from the cost, which is pretty prohibitive, it's a fantastic place to train, and we all ran PBs. Stewy ran 3:48 off a trip there, so we'll definitely go back, and I couldn't recommend it enough. Um, it's an interesting question though because
Mm.
when you're training and traveling and racing, you see a lot of cool spots, but a lot of times you go to a cool city. Like an example would be I went to Nice for a race this year, or a couple of years ago I went to Zagreb in Croatia. But you literally just see the track, the hotel
Yeah.
room, and the airport, and you don't do a lot else.
Oh,
Uh, so it's good to be realistic sometimes about what you do see when you're traveling and
mm.
running on the circuit. You're pretty much just there to race. You're pretty professional, but on the odd occasion you see somewhere really cool. And training camps, especially Saint Moritz, I couldn't recommend enough.
Switzerland is pretty underrated, so might have to check that out down the road. Bucks for sure. Yeah, let's talk about music now. So, what's your go-to song before a race, or what do you listen to generally?
Honestly, it really depends on what's been going on that season. I think I reckon most seasons I have a couple of songs that I'll probably get in my head a bit, and I'll be listening to them pre-races. This year, I was quite influenced by the England's run to the Euros final, and a
It's
lot of sort of
coming
the
home.
music. Like actually a few TikToks of the boys that were really so. Not so much it's coming home, but there was a couple of songs that really were they sort of were did a lot of sort of edits of like old footage and put them over that got stuck in my head. One was Pompeii, maybe one of their recent ones.
Oh
That
yeah, yeah.
was, and a couple others, which had a really nice sort of a really nice way of sort of blending into the background when especially when you're on the bus traveling to a meet. I think I remember listening to that when I was on the way on the bus in Tokyo to the race.
Oh,
But I
that's brilliant.
also had bidders next to me, just trying to fire me up. So that obviously meant I wasn't listening to that much music. And I've never really been one to run listening to music or to warm up to music. I much prefer to just to be with company or to be by myself.
Be in the zone, yeah.
So I'm more listen to it when I'm traveling more than when I'm actually running. Um,
Oh, that's really
yeah,
interesting to hear.
I've never liked running, listening to music. I prefer company. Much prefer to warm up with a mate than to be by yourself.
Fair enough. And we know your
Depends on
mileage,
depends
mate.
on the mate of course, but
I agree, mate. Some
my
mates,
mileage,
yeah.
um, some stress a bit, but some are good.
I was gonna say we know a bit about your mileage, Ben, but how's your diet like, and what do you eat in a normal week? And what about your cheat meals? Like, are you a sweet tooth, or what are you?
I definitely can be a sweet tooth. Amanda will be the first. My girlfriend will be the first person to say I lack all sorts of self control on if I buy a pack of Tim Tams or anything
I
fun.
saw that, yeah.
Um, but uh, but practice and then like the village food was great. Well, post race to try every dessert and try a few things. But to answer your question directly, I on the trip, like when in Saint on the trip in Saint Moritz, we like me, Stewy, and Rambo shared cooking. Things I cooked there were probably a lasagna, a couple of roasts, a couple of more
Wow.
basic sort of pasta dishes. They cooked a few things. So as a general rule, if you eat reasonably healthily and you make sure you've got protein and carbs in lunch and dinner every day, you're a long way. You're doing a lot right. Then if you make sure you have your protein post run, be however you source that, but ensuring you've got protein post run, and electrolytes or an equivalent like Rehydrate, which I've been using lately. That goes a long way to looking after yourself. So it's my rule with it is it's not worth your time if it stresses you out. So you don't need to worry about a perfect diet if that actually causes you more mental stress than just making sure you eat reasonably well would. Yeah. So I don't mind. I think I had a beer in Saint Moritz. I think I had a beer in Helsinki before I went to the Olympics, a month before, a couple. So I wouldn't stress too much. I'd just say it's just sort of doing things in moderation and being organised and always making sure you eat reasonably well, rather than being completely specifically focused. Because I find that actually has a negative effect on me because it sort of means you're a bit more stressed. And a lot of it for me is just staying calm and being sort of in a good headspace.
That's brilliant to hear, especially the diet plans as well. And I know I heard Chewie loves a bit of his Uber Eats, doesn't he?
Oh, mate, I haven't seen him. That's not true. He cooked for us in Saint Moritz and he was pretty good, but he definitely loves Uber Eats. And he's when we were in London, we probably went Uber Eats over cooking a fair few times, and but you've also got to remember, I mean, he's running about 160k a week. I mean, you're running twice a day every day. You don't have a lot of time, or he doesn't to actually. I mean, he probably does have a lot of time, but you're pretty tired from all your training. So it is easier just to order in sometimes, which he's a big fan of that. But he has cooked for me, and he's not a bad cook when he needs to.
And what about, we spoke about the dieting side of running bit. What about like the mental side of being an athlete? Do you practice mindfulness or like meditation stuff, or what do you do?
I don't practice either of those. I think the trick is just to surround yourself with good people, to have a few good people sort of in your corner. Also maybe a couple who you can sort of have a chat to who are outside your close circle, so you can get a different perspective. And just a few little tactics pre-race to just sort of get yourself ready and stay calm and stay focused. A lot of which is just your breathing, because I think when you fit, you're ready to go. Well, you know you're ready to go, and you know you'll race well, and you do race well. The hard thing is when you're having a bad season. But I mean, this year, I remember my last few races, I was very calm and focused, and I knew I was fit, and it sort of took care of itself. So I think it's good to have good people around you. It's good to have a few strategies. But nothing beats having raced well already that season, or being fit and ready to go. So it's important, but it's something to just not overthink, as much as just having a good group around you is the most important thing. And I mention that specifically because a good group when you're traveling is essential, because you're away from home for a long time.
That's amazing to hear as well, especially like that group type stuff, because obviously I can't really train with the squad right now with COVID, but hopefully down the line we can get back in it, because the group vibe, you just kind of draw upon each other and help each other, get that last rep in, stuff like that. Whereas if you're training individually,
definitely,
yeah, it's not as good.
And not just sessions, but just like, that's what I love about a training camp is the whole group jogs together every day. That doesn't happen in Melbourne. That doesn't happen the rest of the time. So you run together twice a day, 2 straight weeks. It's the most fun you ever have. Just this chat and hanging out with everyone. So I mean, it's one of the hardest things in lockdown in Melbourne is that you literally got no one to train with, or one person, and one of the things you really miss the most. So it's good to, it probably makes you appreciate the group a lot more now that we don't have it. No, it would be great fun to get it back.
Yeah, fingers crossed, Dan Andrews. But that's a good segue, mate. All right, the money segment, Bucks. So, are there any funny stories from your schooling days, steeplechase, uni, being a lawyer that you want to share to the listeners out there?
That's a very open-ended way of asking me. What are you interested in specifically? I mean, what's an example someone else has given you generally?
Oh, maybe school camps. Have you got any from them? Or like training camps?
School camps is a long time ago, mate. I was probably 13, 14 years. I remember we knocked a door off mucking around one time, but nothing particularly. Amanda's kicking me here, probably stuff I shouldn't mention. I mean, I mean, nothing. I'm probably not going to give you anything. All the fun stuff I probably won't
True.
share on a podcast, to be honest. But I mean, nothing, nothing really comes to mind. Lots of chaos. You know what athletes are like. There's all sorts of chaos. But um, we had a fun time this year when we had our flight. We got to the Zurich airport and our flight was booked a month later than we'd hoped. Than it was meant to be. And a bit of chaos of sorting that out and having to have a day in Zurich and just rearrange everything. But we sorted that all out pretty fine, and there's not too many dramas. That's probably not really the example you're chasing.
No, that's all good. All right, so obviously when you're growing up, like me, I've got my idols and stuff. But who are your idols growing up?
Now you're testing me. It's quite a few years ago. I mean, any runner probably would say they'd have Mottram and
Yeah,
and then like your first running memory for a lot of people my age is probably Kathy Freeman winning in Sydney. I think that stuck with most people my generation
oh,
because we
that's
were at 9 or 10 in
amazing. Yeah,
2000,
you
and
saw
I
that
still
live,
remember
didn't
her.
you?
Yeah, I remember her winning that
Yeah,
race. I think I was in Perth at the time with family. I remember watching that. And then I remember watching the Com Games in '06 when Mottram ran so well there. And then growing up to a less degree, Ryan Gregson was always a great inspiration. So I remember racing him when I was quite young and coming about 25th, and he won a national 3K looking incredible. So I've always really looked up to him.
oh, that's amazing. It's good to have idols. Especially in running because there's like so many different fields. Like you go from like marathon to your 100 meters, etc.
No, absolutely. And I mean, it's the coolest thing now is, I mean, one of my idols, Gregor, I get to travel with and train with and race with and I have beers with, and that's one of the coolest things. Last couple of years, I've got to go overseas with these guys and be on the circuit and spend time with them and learn from them, and it's been living the dream. So I'm very very lucky.
Yeah, that camaraderie is amazing. Just like with obviously yourself, Stewy, Gregson, all that. It's just amazing to see.
No, those boys plus Matty Ramsden, so it's a great
Oh
group.
yeah, we'll speak about Muddy soon. But all right, I love my
Ooh, ooh,
shoes. Yeah, we will, mate. I love my shoes, but we'll talk about
it's
shoes
always
first.
concerning. Shoes.
All right, what are your shoe recommendations? I know you like your Dragonflies, but give me a few more recommendations, mate.
As in what I'm racing in right now, or just I'm jogging in.
Oh, like
Um,
jogging in as well, I guess.
I mean, right now I'm doing everything in Nike. I'm doing like just jogging in Pegasus. Most of my workouts in Next Percents and
Yeah,
racing in Dragonflies, and have been doing that for the last couple of years. And as many would say, once you start doing sessions in X percent, it's very hard to go back to like more of a traditional flat. Like I used to use a Nike Streak. I used to really like those, but
yeah,
I've those three have been sort of in my wheelhouse, and I've really rated them and would recommend.
yeah. I might have to get one for my birthday, but hold off. I've got the Dragonflies the other day, so they've been pretty good. So we'll see how we go.
Yeah, I saw it. There was a lot of places selling them quite recently, so good to get them.
Yeah,
Nick got me a brand new set for like 2 days before my Tokyo Heat, which was very very kind
oh
of him,
really?
which was quite exciting. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. And all right, quick hands now. I've got a few more for you. So five quick questions. Ben, pineapple and pizza, yes or no?
Depending on the occasion, definitely.
Awesome. English or maths, like in terms of subject, just in
Oh,
general.
English,
Yeah.
English.
Uh, favorite athlete besides, I don't know, besides Grego when you were growing up. Do you have a favorite athlete right now you're training with, like Stewie or something?
It's hard to go past Stewy. Um,
Yeah.
Guys on the circuit, I really rate Matty Hughes. It's like one of the Canadian Steeplechaser. Best came fourth at the Com Games. Real gun.
Favorite place to visit in Melbourne?
Well, I mean, I can't go anywhere right now. I'm stuck in Richmond. Um, I'll probably somewhere in the city for a drink after work. or somewhere. Always quite like Carlton. Always quite like Richmond. But probably one of those bars in the city where you got quite a nice sort of view of the skyline. They're always pretty cool.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And last one for quick hands: morning or night person, Box?
Probably morning, as you can see from me struggling now. Always been up pretty early in training and getting into the office pretty early. So always preferred to get up and get into it.
That's good to hear, mate. Got 3 more questions for you. So I had a look at I think one of the comments from your post, but Matty Ramsden, mate, you shaking your head just before, but he was talking about zombies. Are you a gamer?
Nah, he's a legend. No. We in my youth, I certainly did a lot of FIFA and COD and different things.
I love that, man.
Stewy and Matty, we got onto COD Mobile when we were traveling and passed a lot of time playing COD together when we were especially in Saint Moritz. I've had a few games since, so they're very elite, and I'm getting decent. So we've definitely had a fair bit of that. Rambo is an absolute gun at that. Stewy's pretty good, and I'm definitely second or third out of those two. Rambo carries us a fair bit. Stewie's a bit more hit and miss.
Oh yeah. And speaking about like gaming, like you spoke about growing up, did you play like the Modern Warfares and Black Ops and all that, or
not as much? Like they probably all came out more when I was at uni, when I wasn't as much. When I wasn't gaming as much, not really more than FIFA. For me, gaming's always been something a bit more social. So I did a lot of it at uni when you sort of do it as pre-drinks or before you went out, but I didn't really ever have it set up at home by myself. I'd more playing with a mate or with a group of friends. So I played a lot when I was at uni or when I was living in a share house with mates. But since I moved in with a girlfriend, not as much. I have one mate who would have put a lot of hours into Modern Warfare and that, but I haven't.
Oh, I got into gaming in 2014 and mates got into Modern Warfare 2 and, back then it was crazy when we were growing up.
That's addictive stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And lastly, I've got a listener question. So my mate, who's also a runner, is asking for like a few tips with increasing their speed and to get to the elite level, because he's got a fair bit of endurance, just lacks a bit of that speed. Like he'd pit me in a 10k easy, but 1500 I'd smoke him.
Well, I mean, it's quite a loaded question. The simple answer is do strides on a Monday and race more shorter distances. Is the simple answer. The more complex way is probably the way you train across the board. And I don't really know what he's doing.
He's a triathlete.
I'd say the easiest way to get better but to get better at something that's shorter, you probably need to race more. And if you're a triathlete, you probably wouldn't do many workouts or sort of efforts at around 1500 meter pace, would you?
Yeah.
You'd probably do all your runs in that sort of grey area. So doing more work closer to that distance would be the simple answer. But it's a bit more complex than that, especially if it's a triathlete, because it's not as easy to sort of fit your training, to tweak your training like that.
And lastly, Ben, what's next for you in 2021 and beyond? Like, what are your top 3 goals? Like, obviously with like work and running as well. You want to give me your top 3?
Well, in top 3 goals, when my girlfriend sitting next to me is very very dangerous. As she'll expect me to say something. But top 3 goals: buy a house together, make the Com Games and World Chats teams would be the second one, and I don't think a third one doesn't really come to mind at the moment, but probably something for me to think about. Those are the 2 sort of on my mind right now. Make next year's team and buy a house.
Mate, Bucks, it's been an honour having you on the podcast. Like, I've learnt a fair bit out of his chat, and it's good that you've given us some tips, because the others are going to use it as well. So, mate, pleasure, and best wishes with your steeplechase and your legal journey. And mate, I want to see you at a meet sometime. Hopefully, like Vic Marlers or something. Whatever you're doing, but love to catch up.
No, that sounds good, mate. No, always happy to have a chat, mate. And no, hopefully we're both get to race at a meet before Christmas this year, because that'd be great news for all of us. So no, I'll no, great to have a chat and good to chat to you.
Cheers, Box.